Hey, so hi there, guys. This is Dr. Kingsley, and today I have a special guest, and we're discussing something special. All right, so before we start, don't forget, hey, like, subscribe, share, follow all our sister channels. They'll be a blessing to you. My channel, Kingsley Okonkwo, Pastor Mildred's channel, Mildred Kingsley Okonkwo. Then we have the LDM with PK channel. Then we have the Q&A channel. All right, strictly for Q&A, very nice. Then we have the one on sex. It's called Wholesome Sexuality. So follow all the channels. They'll be a blessing to you. So hey, welcome guys. So today, first of all, I'm shooting from Laguna Niguel. All right, Laguna means water. All right, so we're close to the ocean front, to the beach and all that. Beautiful location, the mountains, the scenery, beautiful. And I have also a very special guest house today. I have none other than the delectable, the beautiful, the amiable Danielle H.
So great to be here. So nice to meet you.
Yes, yeah. we're literally meeting for the first time physically, but I've been watching a lot of your postings on social media, and I've heard a lot about your podcast. But before I go ahead, I want you to introduce yourself to people that have never met you, never heard about you. Who is Danielle H?
Okay. Well, my husband and I have been married for 43 years, and we pastor here in Southern California, and we pretty much have been in the ministry our whole adult life. I got saved at 18. When we met, he said, I just want you to know you're a really likable girl, but I don't want anything to do with you because I don't need any distractions in my life, because I'm going to be in the ministry, I'm going to be a pastor, and girls are a distraction.
Wow.
And we got married 18 months later. Yeah, so it happened really fast. I'm like, why is he telling me that?
Yeah.
I think he likes me. So we've been married 43 years. We have 3 adult children, 1 boy, 2 girls. We have 5 grandchildren, and the 6th one is on its way. So we're super excited about that. Grandparenting is a whole new phase of life.
Yeah.
But we're really excited about that. And I just started doing a podcast and kind of new to social media. We're in our 7th month. And my son said, Mom, you need to do a podcast. It's time. So I fly to Dallas once a month, get to see my granddaughters. We tape our podcasts, and I love talking about everything about relationships.
Oh.
So, yeah.
So the podcast about relationships?
Yes. It's all about, getting married, staying married, and loving it.
Oh.
And being happily
married. Oh.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm honored that you would want me to.
Okay, so so you are a pastor, you're a grandmom, you're a wife, you're also a podcaster.
Yeah.
Okay, so but what led you to speaking about relationship and marriage?
I've always been very passionate about marriage and family, and I came from a divorced home, and I knew when I got married, being that we were getting married so young, I thought I never want to go through a divorce. And my husband felt the same way. We just decided at a very young age that we would stay married no matter what, and it's the best thing for our children. And I like having fun and being happy, and so does my husband. And we said we're never going to be in a bad marriage because I couldn't do that. I can't do unhappy. So we're going to do whatever it takes to be in a happy marriage. And not to say we haven't had our rough times. We definitely have had some troubled times throughout the 40 years, but for the most part, it's been a great journey, very fun. And I know that we couldn't have done it without the Lord, for sure, that God is the center of everything. So I've just been always passionate about that, and just everything I teach in our church a lot. It has something to do with relationships. And I do a lot. I have a personality profile workshop that I do, and I think just understanding people's personality, their makeup, their bent, their temperaments helps so much in having a good relationship with somebody, and even in helping you to know your children too, and knowing their personality styles, and helps you to train them up in the way they should go, not the way you want them to go, but the way they should go, right? So yeah, just always been very interested.
Wow, I totally relate, because a lot of the things I watch from your videos and everything, it just aligns with what we also believe and what we teach. So that's why I felt, no, I have to do something with this woman. So I still agree. But tell us a bit about your podcast. How has it been? Do you get great feedback? And has there been any particular feedback that really touched you or inspired you, stuff like that?
Well, most of the comments, I mean, our podcast is still coming along. I have, well over 1,000 subscribers, but we're still kind of new on that platform. But the Instagram platform and even Facebook has really exploded. I get most of my comments from that. And I have to say, the men love me. The women, not so much.
I was going to come to that because the post I even watched today, I was like, people are not going to like this woman.
Oh, yeah. No, whenever we post something, my son will say, oh, this is going to stir it up. I said, I know, but you can only say so much in a minute, right? Because you have to do these shorts. And when we first started, I said, I can't complete an entire thought in a minute. And he's like, you're going to do it. And I mean, it's work. He's like, do it again. My son produces it. And, but to try to keep a whole thought under a minute. So when comments come in, I take those and then we podcast about that because I have more time to explain it. But some women think that I side with men, and it might look like I do, but I do think women are a big part of the problem in marriage. I do. But I recently found out that studies and research actually show, and this was done by John Gottman, psychologist John Gottman, that men are ultimately responsible for the marriage and keeping the marriage together, even though marriage and family is kind of a woman's world. But what the research says is that women are the ones that are always, they go to the counselors, they read the relationship books. So it depends on how the men respond to women saying, oh, we have to fix this, or this is a problem, this is an issue. And it's like the research puts the responsibility on men, which God does also. So it aligns with the Word of God that men are the head of the house, head of the house, and that is very controversial too with a lot of people, because I think today's woman, and what I'm hearing throughout the world internationally, is that Western women or liberated women, because you've developed masculine energy. There's nothing wrong with that, but you've got women, I believe, need to learn to keep the masculine energy at the office. And when they come home, they've got to turn back into the feminine, into the woman, because no masculine man wants to be married to another masculine man. Right? So women have to learn how to transition into being a girl again, and it's great that, and I get all kinds of comments, well, I'm a leader too, and that's great. But in every relationship, you've got to have the masculine leader, and respected leader, and you've got to have the feminine energy follower. There can't be two leaders. That's, a two-headed anything is a cyclops, is a monster, right? So if you're going to have a marriage that works, there's got to be a masculine and a feminine. And I know marriages where the woman is the more masculine, so she attracted a more feminine energy man. There's nothing wrong with that if you're both in agreement that he's going to have his feelings cherished and she's going to be the respected one. So as long as you have a dialogue about it and it works for you, that's cool.
Okay. So, before, we're going to declare what the topic is, first of all.
Okay.
So that we can take it more, because like I mentioned, when I see some of your posts, I said, no, this is going to get a backlash, because I've been on social media for a while, and I've been through this phase too where that, I can't communicate or the whole thought in 1 minute,
right.
So how do you cope with the negative comments, the negative backlash?
When I first started, I told my son and my daughter-in-law, I said, I don't know if I can do this. So you're not going to look at the comments. We'll funnel through them and we'll let you know if you need to see something. But then I started and I'm like, 500 comments? I couldn't help it. I had to look. I'm like, no, I got to see. But what I realized is that I am not easily offended because I don't take it personal. Like the people that are commenting that are negative, They don't know me. They're commenting on what I post about, not necessarily me. So it's not personal to me. It really isn't. So to me, they can say whatever they want. It is not personal to me, and they're welcome to have their opinions and their views.
That's so nice.
And I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I throw hands in the comment section.
Yeah.
I'm not that nice.
Yeah, well, and what I've learned to do is never to defend myself. I don't, and my son-in-law says, stay away from the mob. He goes, but what I've noticed is the men, and there's some women on there that get it. They really do get it, and they're probably the ones that are in good relationships, and they're married to good men that treat them right. Because some of the comments I get, like I'll say, talk about submitting to your husband. Well, how can I submit or listen to a man that berates me and treats me poorly? Well, I don't know. Why are you even in that relationship?
Yeah,
like
so that's the issue.
You chose to be there.
Yeah,
I'm not advocating being mistreated. I'm not advocating abuse toward women or oppression toward women at all. So I'm talking to normal, healthy people. Of course, if they've got some kind of psychotic mental illness or they're totally narcissists, I get it. I get you would not allow someone to treat you badly, but we teach people how to treat us. So if you're in a relationship where you're not being treated right, get the heck out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. And I know pastors aren't supposed to say that because, God hates divorce, but I think God hates abuse more.
Oh, yeah.
So I would never tell someone to stay in abuse.
Very true. Okay, so we're going to look at feminism, femininity, and the modern woman. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So, what is feminism?
Okay, so feminism.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so that movement started back in the 1960s. And it was basically, we need equal rights. We need to have equal pay for equal work. That's how it started. That's fine. But it turned into women hating men. It turned into, what do we need men for? We can do everything ourselves now. We can vote, we can work, we can buy our own homes, we can get our own loans. We can even have babies nowadays without men, right? Just go to the neighborhood sperm bank. You don't even have to have a man to have a baby. And I just think it turned into, yes, women power. You go to work, you control your destiny, put your kids in daycare. You don't have to stay home and raise those kids. Let somebody else that you're paying $10 an hour raise your children. And I probably at a very young age, because I wrote papers in high school and college on equal rights amendments, I was probably headed that direction. And then I met the Lord at a young age, at 18. So I quickly got delivered from the feminist movement and learned how, what God's perspective about marriage and husband and wife, that kind of relationship. And so I just, I never went that route, but I think a lot of women kind of drank the Kool-Aid of feminism and thinking that they can do everything as good as a man, and we are equal to men. And we are equal in the eyes of God. Men and women are all people are equal in the eyes of God, but in the marriage relationship, in a romantic relationship, it's not necessarily equal. It's more about equity than it is equality. What's fair, what's right, what you agree on, what you decide on, but we both play different roles in the marriage relationship. And I think a lot of women don't know that role anymore, and they've become so masculine, and masculine men, again, aren't going to be attracted to that masculine energy in a woman. In the workplace, it's great. You got to be productive, you got to produce, you got to be in charge, call the shots. But when you come home, you need to turn back into a woman if you want to be married to a masculine man.
But a lot of people have the impression that the Bible is more patriarchal in nature, that it supports men, it gives men more advantages than women. So what do you think about it? Is that true? Or
Well, and I think it depends on who's interpreting the scriptures, because I know there are some pastors and some churches that have, and I read this recently, which I was mortified, but about women coming in and talking about being in an abusive relationship, and certain pastors saying you just need to be more submissive. You need to be more loving, like putting it all on the woman, and it made me want to throw up. I was just like, oh, like in our church, I would never again tell a woman to stay in an abusive relationship. So I think some men don't understand what headship and submission means. It doesn't mean that women are subservient. It doesn't mean that they are doormats. It's like my husband and I, we will have a conversation and we might disagree and we might have an argument about something, but rarely in 43 years has he ever had to say, submit woman, or I'm the boss.
Yeah.
You know, we come to an agreement. We get into unity before we do anything major. And there's been times where he has said, no, this is the direction we're going, when I disagreed. And I have to admit, I deferred to him, and I'll say to him things like, I don't trust that decision right now, but I trust the God in you. So I'm giving this to God. I'm going to defer. I'm going to submit. I hope you know what you're doing, because I'm not sure either, but I'm going to follow you because you're the man and I'm the woman. And then when I do that, it puts so much responsibility on him. He'll come back and go, okay, now tell me again why you don't think we should go that way. And we will usually most every time come to an agreement, you know, before we make any major moves. But I think to be the feminine in the relationship, I need to, you know, defer and be a little bit more, you know, take maybe a back seat. That doesn't mean I'm weaker. It doesn't mean I have no power. It doesn't mean I have no say or no choice in the matter. And I always tell women, you know, if you have a problem with submission, number one, don't get married, because a marriage relationship isn't going to work. And the Bible also says to submit to one another. Okay, if we go back a couple verses in Ephesians, submit to one another, which my husband and I do. But if you have a problem with submission, stay single, because a relationship isn't going to work unless someone submits. And don't ever marry a man that you can't submit to, right? If you don't respect him, you won't be able to submit to him. So marry a man that you have such a high regard and respect for him. You don't just love him, but you respect his leadership and you trust him. Yeah. You know, a woman will have no problem submitting to a man that she feels safe with, that she trusts, a man that cherishes her.
But my wife always says submission starts with selection.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good. I like that. Submission starts with selection. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, but can a woman be strong and yet feminine?
I think so. But I have that very feminine side. So when I have to lead something, lead a group or lead a seminar or lead a class, yes, I'm in charge, I'm the boss. Or if I travel and am speaking, yes, I am leading my life. But when it comes to home and it comes to my husband, I definitely defer to him. And I think you can be a strong woman and yes, be very feminine. And remember, femininity, it's about not always having to call the shots. It's about, you know, sometimes, and I know this is going to cause women to cringe, but it's sometimes going ahead and being the smaller so that your man can be the bigger, okay? It's like a woman that always has to compete with her man. Like a man doesn't want to have to compete with his woman. He has to compete all day long at work and with other men. He doesn't want to have to compete with the woman he loves. I mean, and I'm not talking about playing Scrabble or, you know, a game, you know, friendly competition. But he wants to feel like the man in the relationship. And I want my husband to be the masculine in the relationship. So I feel like I can be strong, but yes, feminine at the same time.
Okay. But so if there's a woman out there watching and she doesn't even know what it means to be feminine at all.
Yeah.
If you were going to give a few tips, you know, what would it look like?
Yeah. Okay, so femininity is more about being feeling centered. Okay, so, and biologically, genetically speaking, general, and this isn't general because personality styles have a lot to do with this, but usually men generally are more left lobe logic and women are more right lobe feeling oriented, okay? That's just the way we are made up. But yes, there are some women that are very logical, not as emotional, and there's some men that are very emotional men. You probably, as a preacher, are pretty emotional. I know my husband is. He's a preacher. Like he's emotional. He probably is more emotional, actually. But so I think that femininity is more about being the more passive and not in a negative way. I'm not talking about passive aggressiveness, but you know, taking kind of that, not always having to come up with the solution, even if you have the answer, letting the man figure out the problem, letting him fix the problem. Men are natural problem solvers. Femininity is more about saying, if I'm having a conversation, this is how I feel. What do you think about how I feel? So the men are the thinkers, they're the logical ones, the women are the feelers. Not that men don't have feelings, not that they don't have emotions, they do also, but women usually talk about feelings more generally than men do, right? So the feminine one is respecting the masculine for his thoughts, his opinions, his leadership. Femininity is about receiving what a man has to provide. These days, women are like, I can open my own car door. I can pull my own chair out. I don't need you to buy my meal, right? I can do everything myself. What do I need men for? It's not that attractive. That's just not that sexy. It's not, right? Because a man wants to provide. He wants to protect. He wants to give. And usually a man's resource to provide and to give way outdoes a woman's ability to receive. If we will just let them provide, but these days it's like we've got it all backwards. Women really do have it all backwards. And so, and people will DM me all the time and say, well, you know, what if I'm dating a liberated woman? This one guy said, would you like me to pay for the meal? Or would you like to? He goes, because I'm all about you being the liberated woman. And she said, no thanks, I would be more comfortable if you paid. And I thought that was great, because he wants to, but he's trying to be sensitive to her. So giving is masculine, receiving is feminine. So men want to give, they want to provide. If they have masculine energy or their spirit is masculine, femininity isn't about wearing a dress or putting on high heels. It's about receiving, it's about being a support, it's about being the enhancer. Like feminine energy is like artists or musicians or hairstylists. It's about fixing up, making pretty. Like it has nothing to do with sexuality. There's so many designers and fashion, men that are in fashion energy, which is great. Again, it has nothing to do with their manhood, but that's just their gifting. So femininity is allowing men to be men, and rather than arguing and disputing and grumbling and coming up against them, trying to be as good as them or equal to them, we're all equal, okay? But we all have different roles in a relationship. So femininity is femininity is the responder, okay? So you have the leader and you have the follower. That's basically it. So you have to figure out, you have to have conversations in your relationship. If you trade roles, because every now and then, like if I'm stronger in some area, I will lead in that area, and my husband's like, great, go for it. You know how to do that better than me. Like when it comes to counseling, like my husband's not a counselor, and people all the time want to get with him, and I try to tell them, he's going to preach to you. He is not going to counsel you. Hey, you need to go get professional counseling. Or he'll say, talk to my wife, because I just have that's more my nature. But the areas that he is strong in, he does that. So I say, both people bring their strengths to the table. Sometimes the woman will lead in certain areas, sometimes the man will. But as long as you're in cahoots about it, you have a conversation. If you're going to trade roles in a certain area and you're both on the same page, it can work. But you just can't have too masculine or too feminine in the relationship. Opposites attract. If you want to be married to a masculine man, you need to be your most feminine self. If you want to attract a masculine man, you need to be in the feminine. Like I always tell women that are dating, you're not the first one to speak. You can smile, you can flirt with your eyes, but he needs to be the one to approach you. If you approach him, you become the masculine. So, and then you're setting the stage for the relationship. So you need to be quiet and allow the man to approach you and to pursue you. Don't call him, don't text him, let him lead the relationship. You're the feminine if you want to be with a masculine man. Now there's some women, no, they want to be the masculine, they want to call the shots. Great, more power to you, but you will attract a feminine energy man. And as long as you're okay with that, but get used to leading. And if you want to be that person and he's okay with the woman leading, then that can work too, as long as you have one of each in the relationship.
That's amazing. So basically, feminism and femininity, they cannot coexist.
No, two different things. Yeah. Feminism is the attitude. It begs the question, what do we need men for? That's basically it. And feminism is, again, They did a good job getting us equal pay for equal work, but it has wreaked havoc on romantic relationships. So if you can turn back into a woman when you get home from work, I have my daughter has a lot of masculine energy, and she is married to a very strong masculine man who he's a U.S. Marshal, and he knows how to use a gun. He's on the SWAT team for the U.S. Marshals. So, but she has chosen to be the feminine in the relationship, although she has a lot of masculine energy.
So literally,
you choose.
You can choose. Yes,
you can choose, right? Because rarely do I hear women, I'm not saying there's some exceptions, that say they want to be the masculine. Usually a strong woman wants a man who's stronger. And like my daughter, she's very strong, she has a lot of masculine energy, but she is with a man that he just adores her. He's just, the way he looks at her, he's like, go babe, go. Like, although he's a strong man, but when she comes home from work, and I've asked her, how do you change back into the feminine? She goes, it's hard. It's hard because I'm at work, man. She's got a very stressful job. And she says, I need some time. I need to, like zone out for a while. And, and I always tell women when they come home from work, go take a shower, put some smell good something on, like take some time to just come down from that masculine energy where you can be soft again and tender. Like when I start getting too strong, my husband has always said this in our marriage, can you just be a little tender? I'm like, oh, that's my cue that I'm getting a little too, and I'll go, and what does that look like to you? Because I don't even realize I'm not being tender, but for him, I'm not, so we've had to have those conversations. But anyway, so my daughter will just say, it's like I literally have to intentionalize becoming the woman, becoming the receiver, and not be calling the shots and doing everything. I've got to kind of take the back seat. And it's not easy, but it's doable. It's doable.
So femininity actually is like a woman's strength.
Yeah, it could be very strong. Yes, it is very strong.
It's kind of gives an advantage in the relationship.
Yeah, because a masculine man is very attracted to a feminine woman. That's sex appeal. That's sexy.
Yes.
Okay, if he's a masculine energy man. So, and you want to keep your partner attracted, regardless of how long you're married, right? I mean, you always want to have that attraction. And a man who gets too into his feminine energy, a feminine woman will lose respect for him because she wants to be able to respect the masculine. So if he gets too emotional or too feeling oriented, sometimes it's almost like that feminine woman, it's like because she wants to be that strong masculine man. Not that he can't share feelings or, we talk a lot about emotional, intellect. And it's not that men don't have emotions, they're not used to expressing them the way women do, because a lot of men weren't raised or taught, right? You were taught not to cry, be strong, suck it up, don't be emotional, right? Because that's what a real man is, right? And so it's not that men don't have emotions, but sometimes even as adult men, they have to learn how to express them. What is a feeling? Let's talk about feeling words, anger, sadness, happiness, because they're just, if you ask a man how he's doing, how he feels, he'll go fine.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
And that's it. Fine. And he may not be fine at all, but he doesn't maybe know how to express, or he feels like it's too vulnerable. A place to start talking about his feelings if he's unhappy or sad or scared. Oh, God forbid, right? Men don't ever want their women to know that they might be afraid of something. But that's okay, because sometimes you are afraid of something. So it's just working it. It's that the yin and yang. It's just working it together.
You've been married for 43 years, so that's a long time. What has changed with how people do marriage?
Well, I
that
think,
time and how it is.
Okay, so yes, lots has changed in 43 years, because in the beginning we're raising small children. I did not work outside of the house. I had little jobs, like I taught group exercise classes and did little things here and there, but I mostly was home raising my kids. And then they grew up, and then for me, all three of my kids left within 3 months of each other, out of the house. One got married, one went off to school, one moved out of state, and I found myself empty nested. And it was a big transition for me. I was like, what do I do now? Like, I'm not the mom anymore, or not hands-on anyway. So I kind of had to, find other things to do. We were pastoring a church, but there wasn't a whole lot for me to do at that time, even though I was teaching in the church and doing Bible studies. And then, the older we have gotten, now we have grandchildren, I think what my husband always said, and I say, is that probably the best part of our relationship is we give each other a lot of freedom. Because, your body changes. Like, we used to ski together. Well, his knees won't allow him to ski anymore. He was a basketball player. So he always says, I have basketball knees. But I'm not ready to stop skiing. So I have found women friends that we take our little ski trips together. And I know that I can't depend on my husband to make me happy. I can't look to him for my happiness. Happiness is an internal state of mind and state of being. And that is between me and God. But he can add to my happiness, absolutely. And he gives me the freedom to do the things that I still want to do that maybe he can't do. And I give him freedom to do what he wants to do that maybe I'm not that interested in. And it's just, I don't think we have to do every single thing together. Some people will say, you guys both travel so much and you do things without each other. I never want to be without my husband or wife for that length of time. And I'm like, even though we could be in different states or countries, we talk on the phone 3 or 4 times a day, every single day. Like, we're totally connected. Like, we just have a good friendship. We have a good camaraderie where we're always excited to talk to each other and tell each other about our day or what happened with who or when. With me starting this podcast, he is my number 1 cheerleader. He is so supportive of me and the success that it has had. People will say, how's Steve doing with all the sick? And I'm like, are you kidding? He's like, go. Like, he thinks it's great. Yeah. And when he has his successes, I'm his cheerleader and applauding him on the sidelines. So I think lots of things have changed, and you have to roll with the years and roll with the changes and accept reality. I think, I think for women especially, they have a lot of expectations of men. And I like to always say there's a big space between expectation and reality, right? Which is called disappointment. But here's the thing, we can't change reality. So we have to change our expectations, right? And I think for women especially, and this may apply to men too, but I think we need to lower our expectations of the man being our end all, be all, end all. He's not God. He's a man, and he's fallible and he's imperfect, just as we are. And we've got to keep the main thing, keep God in his rightful place on the throne of our heart, and not switch it up and put the man on the throne of our heart. It's God first, then your husband, God first, then your wife, right? So I think just having all of that, and again, good communication. My husband and I, again, we talk a lot. We're both communicators, so we're both very verbal. And but yeah, definitely we are in a different place now. But we both say this is such a good place. Yeah. Like we give each other our freedom. We are excited when we're together, but we're having fun pursuing our our own thing. But our own things complement each other. We're both ministry oriented. That's our purpose together. And I think that's another huge part of a marriage working. Is you want to marry someone where you have similar purposes, like you're going in the same direction, you connect at purpose and values, right? So that's super important for a marriage.
Okay. I want to add this last question. Okay. Culturally speaking, in the minds of people, what is going on around marriages 43 years ago? Is there any difference between how people see and view marriage?
Yeah. Well, I think people now say marriage doesn't work. Some people say it's going to be extinct, and eventually, and I disagree. I think the marriage relationship is the most important relationship you will ever have, because it symbolizes our relationship with God, Jesus and the church, where Jesus is the head, the husband, and the church is the wife, the bridegroom. And I think it's so important, but I think, and this is what I've learned recently too, because I have been guilty of saying, even Christians divorce at the same rate that non-Christians do, which I have found out recently that is not true. It's not true. But the reason the numbers get skewed and out of whack is because when they give surveys, like some men will check the Protestant or Christian box, and they may not be Christians.
Yes, practicing Christians.
But right, and they're called nominal, in name only, like they're Christians in name only, but they don't go to church, or they go maybe once in a great while, and they say nominal men. Their marriages, they have the highest divorce rate and the highest domestic violence if you're married to a nominal man, which is so sad to say, but it's in name only. They're professing to be Christians, but they're not. And I've also learned recently that research shows that evangelical Christian women are the happiest in marriage, and the divorce rate is not the same as unbelievers. But again, the numbers get mixed up because of the people calling themselves Christians that aren't. So I thought that was really interesting, because wouldn't the enemy love us to think that marriage doesn't work and convince people don't get married, just move in together, have babies out of wedlock, because it's not going to work anyway, and then raise kids, without a husband, without a father and a mother. So I think that's the enemy's ploy, is to convince people it doesn't work.
But were people more committed?
Back then, I think so. And maybe too, because back then, in the 50s and 60s, women weren't outside the home working the way they are today. It wasn't until after World War II that women really started going to work, when the men went off to war. And then they liked that independence. They liked getting that paycheck. And again, I don't think that there's any problem with that. It's just women can't be men. And they've gotten so masculine. I think that is the problem in marriage. And I think for most women, if they can be married to a man they trust, that is a good leader who makes good decisions, they'd be happy.
You prefer that to leading?
Yes, they'd be happy to take the feminine role. It's the women that aren't married to strong, respectable men that are having problems, in the marriage, which again, selection is really important. Selection is very important. So I think there wasn't the divorce rate back then, but now with the feminist movement and women working, not that it's a bad thing, we just have to learn to transition and stay in our roles, our rightful God-given roles.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. This was good. I just felt like we should go on, but
we probably could go on talking forever. Yes.
Thank you very much. This was so nice. It was so such a blessing.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Hey, so guys, this was beautiful. It was a pleasure having Daniel Hage in the house today. I'm literally in her house, but
in my house.
But hey, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. Also follow her pages on her podcast. Tell us how should we get it?
Yeah, it's Daniel Hage Podcast, 1L. Daniel Hage Podcast. And I think I'm on Instagram as Danielle Catherine Hage, because my daughter-in-law is Danielle Hage. Some people get us confused. She's got two L's. Danielle is 1L. So, but and I'm on Facebook. It's the Danielle Hage Community page on Facebook. And
so please make sure you follow us. Loads of helpful material. All right, so see you guys next time.